Today's topic is on independence and hypervigilance when it comes to independence. What we want to see in a society usually is some sort of interdependence, like people have the freedom to be themselves and live authentically as themselves, but we also live in a society where we help each other, right? What we have here to represent this card is the sea turtle. That is our representation of independence. When you think about how sea turtles, interact in the world, not only do they usually travel alone, they don't really travel in packs, but also whenever they're ready to give birth, they go back to where they were born and lay their eggs, right? And so this to me kind of is creating a dynamic of going back to our roots and also looking towards our ancestors for answers. We really need to be guided by people who have been where we are now. They've been there before. And we have entire histories of people who have been in worse conditions. I mean, it's currently happening still, in worse conditions than what we're dealing with, and how they persevered and how they moved beyond that. I feel like that is so important. Something else that came to me as a message when I was putting these out was the idea of people subscribing to this really extremist, like religious ideals. I watched a couple yesterday who were very into those, point of views that put a certain person above everybody else. Everybody else in the family does not have any rights. They're not allowed to have any thoughts of their own. And this is all to serve their deity, right? So whenever they start asking this person more questions, this person was creating a narrative that, the government is paying for essentially sluts to live freely and be sluts. That was what his perspective was. And then digging deeper, you find out that this person actually has a single mother. And so it's like, okay, so where's the disconnect here? Do you love your mother? But then I started thinking about how a lot of these organizations target single mothers because they need help. So if they don't have the freedom and the liberation of this government assistance that's helping them live an independent life, they're reliant on these religious institutions to do that for them. And these religious institutions are going to promote this sort of extremism, especially if they have a son. Well, I mean, if they have a daughter too, everyone has their place in this dynamic that they're trying to create. And single mothers and people living in poverty, people who have been, impoverished in some way, those people are going to be the people that they target. And then they can turn their children into child soldiers. I've heard and talked to plenty of people who have escaped this lifestyle. And they talk about their childhood and they talk about how it starts young, right? It starts with punishing infants and it goes on from there. And what they're creating are child soldiers, and these are people who join these communities are lost, like single mothers. So villainizing the people that they're using to create this sort of, homegrown terrorism type platform, it gives this idea too of the hyper independence, and it also in the way of like, they want to be separated from the government. Whenever other people find independence from having that assistance and having that help, bad things happen to people. Most people know that because they've experienced it and they've seen it firsthand. And instead of being traumatized into being forced into a certain ideal, a lot of people just try to figure out how to live, how to go to the next step in life. They're not forced into these conditions where there's no escape and they have to subscribe, or they lose everyone that they love, everyone they've ever known, and they get thrown out into the world where they're told they don't deserve help. They don't deserve prosperity unless they subscribe to this certain extremist point of view. So that really came through for me really hard when I was looking at the sea turtle card. I feel like some people maybe watching this will be able to not empathize, but they can identify with that sort of upbringing. And so for the rest of the reading here, because I've already almost used half my time, maybe I'll do a part 2 of this video. If I get close to 10 minutes, I'll do a part 2. So we have the Page of Stars. The stars here, actually there are a lot of coins. There's stars or coins in this. So a lot of material things. We have Page of Stars. What I have here is grounded in earth, gentle and kind, patient and determined. What I also get from it is Page is usually about learning. And it's about being a bit of a novice when it comes to whatever element that it's paired with. So for me, this kind of tells me that for a lot of people, they're kind of trying to figure out how to be more one with the community, one with nature, being a little bit more into what it means, you know? And that also goes with, sorry, my nose is itchy. That also goes with looking into our ancestors and thinking about what they did and how they approach these things. You know, when I'm talking to people who think differently than me, you know, and people are talking about like, where were you going to be when this happened or whatever. And I know that they're talking to everybody because of course we're all involved, but I'm also just like, well, if these certain people get what they want, I'm going to be treated the same as my people in the past were treated anyways. Right. So it really just becomes kind of like, looking back at what they did, how they combated it, and how things moved forward. And that's really like where we are currently. And it sucks, you know, it really sucks to have so much progress only to have it like threatened in such a huge way. So a lot of people are figuring out like, how can we be more grounded? And also, how can we be more gentle and kind? The other day I got a card, you know, the topic was empathy, right? How do we stay empathetic? I'm struggling with the empathy because a lot of these different issues are a direct threat to my personal safety and who I am. So whenever we're looking at, you know, the image that came into my mind about this extremism, it really painted things in a different light for me, that a lot of these people are prey and they were taught to, in order to survive, they need to become predators. And so it's a really like survivalist like movement and instinct. And it's all homegrown, you know what I mean? It's like their own community is hurting them, harming them, traumatizing them, and then making them believe that it's these other groups that are the reason that they're living this life. And hey, we give you good things. You know, you wouldn't have this if it wasn't for us. You know what I mean? Your mom had nobody and we helped her, and now you are serving us for life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like that indoctrination or whatever. We have 4 of stars here, which tells me a lot of people are unwilling to share. And we know, and that's basically what I've been talking about, right? Do I really need to super elaborate on that? I was already talking about the government assistance. I was talking about the unwillingness to really help each other in the community. A lot of these people with these ideals think that the community should help and that people should subscribe to extreme religious beliefs in order to be protected. And they're not realizing that society didn't do that. Religion has repeatedly not done that. They haven't served that role, which is why we've created this government system to help people who are impoverished or displaced or whatever is going on. You know, it's the idea of liberation of all people. You know, until all of us are free, none of us are free. A lot of people are serious about that point of view. A lot of other people think that people should just be, you know, locked up and not free. There should be an end group that has freedom to do anything, and then another group that are essentially slaves. So dealing with that like different point of view is definitely coming from a greedy place, a selfish place, wanting to control other people. They don't have control of themselves or their spirit. In fact, these people are spiritless, if you really think about it. Because if you have spirit within you, and if you have that divine connection, then you're not going to turn to hurting other people, possessing other people. You know, they say in therapy that if you start policing what other people are doing, it's because you feel out of control within yourself. And so these communities that feel totally out of control and they're preyed upon, then they're going to turn and look outside. How can we control what other people are doing? You know, oh, I'm bad because this thing happened to me, so we need to make sure that other people that this same thing happened to also know that they're bad and they're punished for it. Like, this point of view ends up being not helpful, right? Harmful at the end of the day. I'm only about halfway through this reading, so I'm going to make a part 2. But if you're watching me on, no, whatever. I'm just gonna make a part 2. So go look for part 2 if you want to finish the rest of this reading. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever. You can also buy me a cup of coffee, which would be really helpful. So tune in for part 2 where I continue this reading.